If you clicked on this, then you might already be building an app in an AI tool like Lovable or Bolt, but are just struggling to figure out what to do next, how to launch it, and actually get real paying customers. And so today I want to take you through my exact 30-day framework for validating an app, building an app, and then launching it. And this is the exact framework I would use if I was going to start building an app from scratch from today and get my first customer by the end of that 30 days. If you don't know me, my name is Chris, and for the last 15 years I've been designing apps and advising startups on product and design, and I believe the next wave of incredible businesses is going to be built using these AI tools. And so with that said, let's get straight into the 30-day framework and take you through it step by step.
Build great products. Build great products.
So this is my 30-day roadmap to build an app with AI, and then to launch it, and then to actually get paying customers. I'm going to take you step by step through every single day here. Now, you don't necessarily have to do all of them. There are some bits that you might be able to skip depending on what you're building. But ultimately, this is really going to take you through 3 stages here, which is validate, build, and launch. So we want to validate our idea first to make sure that what we're building is actually going to work, people that are actually going to want the app that we're building. We want to build it. Obviously, we're going to use tools to actually build the app and make the back-end functionality work and all of that stuff. If you're already building, this is a really common place that people start because they see something like Lovable and you see, well, you can build an app in minutes, and so why wouldn't I want to do that? But actually, like, getting your app from something like Lovable, making it work properly, and then actually launching it and deploying it to a live kind of website or URL is a really, really difficult part to go through, and it actually takes a lot of extra steps that you might not think you need to go through to get there. But you can do all of this within 30 days. And then the last part here is launch, which seems like it's long for 10 days of this process, but launching, I think, is an ongoing process. Launching is not like one day where you say, I'm going to launch today and magically your customers are going to appear. Launching is actually having a basic app that you know works, and then finding different places to speak to people in order to get your first customers. And you have to kind of do that legwork a little bit to actually bring people through to your app. And we're going to talk about the various ways that you can bring people through to your app in this launch step when we get to there. So let's just go through this in order and I'll break it down for you. And if you do want this full checklist and a course for each of these steps, because that's what I've put together over in my community, you can go to school.com/AI apps and you'll get the full course for this whole process there, as well as a community of a load of other people who are building AI apps and trying to actually get their first customers. We've got people building a ton of different AI apps over there, which is super interesting, and I just want to help people build these actual AI apps that they're working on and not get stuck in Lovable or Bolt or whatever platform you're using to actually make this real and get actual customers. So let's go through it step by step. So the first section here is validate. And on day 1, we want to find an idea worth building. Now, you might have an idea already. You might think, well, I want to use AI to make stories for kids. This is like a really common idea that people have, and I've seen so many people try to build this idea, and this is why I think it's really important to make sure that you're building the right thing. And it doesn't mean that your first idea is bad. The idea for creating stories for kids using AI is an okay idea, it's a decent idea. But first, with this step here, find an idea worth building, what we want to make sure is that we're solving a problem and that people will pay for the solution. So for an idea I'm just going to draw a line here to this one. So for an idea like create stories with AI for kids, it's an okay idea, but what we want to do is we want to take that idea and we want to make it better. We want to make it solve an actual problem, and we want to make it solve a problem that people are willing to pay for. So how can you make it solve a problem that people are willing to pay for? Really, we just have to identify the problem somehow. So let's think about around stories for kids and reading a story to your kid, what problems could exist in that space. For me, I really enjoy reading a story to my daughter before bed. It's a really good bonding time. But what I might want there is I'd actually really like, what I look for sometimes is like books that teaching them a certain lesson, or like helping them understand that sharing is good, or to be kind, or that sort of stuff. So I think there's an idea here around like stories to teach specific lessons to kids with AI. So we're already like narrowing down like the problem this is solving here. Another thing that we could do here is more personalized stories. So stories that are more personalized. So say, and how could we connect that? So let's say that this might be personalized based on person, or something that happened, like an event, or their age. And so how could we create personalized stories based on these things? Another thing that might be interesting here is stories for specific learning difficulties. So if you have particular experience with that, you might want to solve that problem specifically. But already what we've gone from here is like a fairly generic idea to something which is really specifically solving a problem. Now, we also want to validate that people will pay for this solution. So this actually gets into the next step here. So first, we're going to find an idea worth building on day one that we think resonates with us. So that's another part of this here, is like founder market fit. And that means like, are you aligned with solving this problem? Like, do you have a unique angle or expertise that means that you care about solving this problem? Like if you, and I think the lens to look at this through is like, if you had to solve this problem or like build this app for a significant amount of time, making no money, what would be your motivation to still do it? And so you always want to build something that you're actually personally motivated to build. Day two, we're going to validate the idea will work. And this means that, so validating the idea will work is about, will people pay for the solution? And also, can we feasibly build it? And also increasing the value of this idea. So validating the idea is really about just proving that this is the right thing to build. So we've found an idea that we think is worth building. Now we're going to validate it to actually prove that it is worth building. And so there's a few things that you can do here. You can do market research using AI. So like Perplexity Labs is great for this, to create you a report. You can also put in like a prompt to help you validate. Over on the community that I'm building, the AI App Builders Academy, I've got a one prompt validation method that you can put into ChatGPT to validate your idea in one prompt, which is a really, really quick way of doing it. That basically takes you through 7 steps of refining the idea, finding the right target customer, validating if that's going to work in the market, giving you a unique angle on that idea, all of those sorts of validation things. And then this goes into day 3, which is more detailed market, customer, and competitor research. And so you can do this again using Perplexity Labs and other tools like that to create a research report really, really easily. And all of this step is, these first 5 days, is really just to give you the confidence to know exactly what you're building, exactly what problem you're solving, exactly what customer you're targeting, and how much you should charge for it. And that really comes onto this next piece, which is the business model piece here. So for the business model, you're basically answering the questions, how much can I charge? What is the charging method? What is the pricing structure? So that could be subscription, one-off, revenue share. It could be a load of different things. And you want to like figure out how you're going to actually make money from this before you start building it. Because if your costs for actually delivering this solution are more than people are willing to pay for it, then it's not worth building. And it's okay if you're going through this process for the 30 days and just going right back to the beginning to like find a different idea. That's absolutely okay. And a lot of the time, the first ideas that we have aren't the best ones anyway. And that's why they need refining and shaping and also putting in the bin if they're rubbish. And that's why we go through this process in the first 5 days of the 30-day app course. So let's figure out what the business model is and what the pricing model is. And there's also a prompt in the course in the community for that if you want to get stuck in as well. Then we're going to conduct some AI user research. Now this is a really interesting one. I'm just going to put this, we're running out of space here. I'm just going to put this over here. So to do AI user research, what do I mean by AI user research? What is AI user research? Well, AI user research basically means telling AI to role play as your customer and then asking the AI questions. And you can use AI to create the survey for this as well. Create the survey questions for your AI that's pretending to be your customer. Now this is nowhere near as good as actually going and talking to real customers. So if you can actually talk to a customer in person, the type of person who might use your app and get feedback from them directly on what they would want, that's super useful. But if you don't have that, what you can do is just say to AI, behave as if you're this person, and then you can go to another chat and you can go create a survey, create a user interview survey so that I can ask questions to this person and get insight. And then you just ask those questions back to the AI that is behaving as your user, and you'll get a load of decent insight. And especially if you use one of the bigger AI models, so if you use O3 or if you use 2.5 Gemini 2.5 Pro or the crazy Grok model, which I can't remember what that's called, but any of those will give you really, really detailed and structured responses to that. And these are all going to help you. Basically, the goal here is like define your idea. Define your idea super clearly, so that it's super valuable and it solves this problem really, really well. So let's go into the second step here. Quick break in the episode to talk about my community for people who are building apps with AI and want to actually launch their app and get real customers. It's called the AI App Builders Academy. So if you're building an AI app with Bolt or Lovable or Cursor or any of these AI tools and you actually want to make a profit and launch your app, then this is the community for you. Inside, you'll get access to a community of other builders as well as my 30-day app course, helping you go from idea to app to a profitable launch in just 30 days. You'll also get access to weekly calls with live workshops and training, as well as all of my startup frameworks and resources, and 24/7 support from the community to help you answer any questions or problems you're having with building and launching your AI app. So if you're building an app with AI and you actually want to make a profit and launch your app, then head over to school.com/AI apps to find out more. I'll see you there. So we've got our idea, we're really happy that it's solving a really strong problem, and we're really confident in the solution that we're building for it. So when you come to build, the first thing you want to do is not actually build anything. The first thing we want to build, in inverted commas, is to basically outline our one feature MVP. So why one feature? Well, this is an MVP, which means minimum viable product. And that basically means the minimum amount of stuff that we can include in this app to actually solve the problem that we're trying to solve. And so what if you stripped everything out, because you might have an idea and you think, well, this could be a cool feature, this could be a cool feature, this could be a cool feature. What is the one thing that solves this problem? What if you stripped every single feature that you can think of out of your app and you just put one feature into your app that solved that problem the best that it could, and that you could use to launch your app? Because the goal, we want to be clear of like the goal in this build section. The goal in this build section is basically to create the least amount that we have to build for the most impact. So we want to minimize the amount of time that we have to spend building, and we want to maximize the impact that we're going to have when we actually get people using this app. And so the next step, once we've figured out like what's the one thing that solves this problem, what's that one feature that we're building? Okay, we've got our one feature. So what next? Let's sketch our user journey and feedback loop. I'm actually going to take this all the way over here with a horribly drawn arrow, and we're going to do some boxes. So what this looks like, what is a user journey? So sketch your user journey and feedback loop. And why do we need those two things? So a user journey is simply like a series of boxes with arrows that point to the next box. And what we're doing here is we're mapping out what someone might do if they used our app. So it would usually start with like a landing page, and then they log in or sign up, and then they get into the app. So this is where your app starts working. So what happens in your app? And you can map this out in a whole bunch of different ways, create all of these different flows where they go into each other or different ways, whatever you kind of want here. And that is going to be your one feature for your MVP that you outlined in day 6. Day 7, we're just going to sketch this. And we're also going to do what I like to call a feedback loop. And this is something that exists in the majority of successful startup products, is a feedback loop. What is a feedback loop? Well, a feedback loop is something that gets people coming back. It's something that's repeatable. And it's something that provides a sense of progress generally. These things are generally really good to give our users. So a really good example of a feedback loop where you would basically create this kind of loop here between different actions is like, I get a rating, and this is a feedback loop that I'm working with another client to actually build into their app. Basically, you get a rating and then you improve something, and then you go back and you get another rating again. So I get a rating, I improve it, and then I get another rating. Hopefully the rating's gone up, and then I improve it again, and then I get another rating. Another really good way of thinking about this is like I complete a task, and then I get a reward, and then I complete a task, and then I get a reward. And that's what you would find in like social media apps a lot of the time. But completing the task is like watching the video or creating and posting the video, and then the reward is likes or shares or whatever that might be. That's your feedback loop. This is useful for 2 things, because it reduces churn, which means the amount of people who are leaving your app to go and do something else or use a different tool. And it also helps users build a habit that keeps them using your app. So that's what we want to create in our user journey map as well, a very simple feedback loop. So day 8, test your AI functionality manually. So what do I mean by test your functionality manually? Well, what I mean is that we want to think about what is our AI functionality. Most of the time here we're building AI apps that are going to help people do something with AI. So say I want a report, I ask for a report, and then the AI generates a report, and then the AI gives me back my report on a dashboard. So let's think about that functionality. That's the functionality. And then the second to that, we want to test it manually. So how do we test it manually? In that instance, testing it manually might look like going to ChatGPT, putting the prompt in, seeing what comes back. So we put a prompt in, see what comes back, because essentially for our AI functionality on our app, all we're doing is we're sending data to an AI model, and then we're getting the AI model to do something with that information, and then that AI model is sending that information back to our app to then display on our app in the user interface. And so we can test that manually without actually having to build anything first to get it to a point where we're really happy with the output, that the output is good enough. And so that's what we're going to do on day 8. Day 9, we're going to create and use our first prompt. So by first prompt, what do I mean? I mean, first prompt is for your build tool. So what tool are you building in? Usually this is going to be like Lovable, Bolt, maybe some others, maybe Base 44, maybe you're using Claude Code in Cursor, or you're building in Cursor. That's absolutely fine as well. This is the prompt for that. And what do we want in our first prompt? Well, the way that I like to approach building apps is there's 2 ways really to build your app, to start building your app. The first way that I like to do is build your functionality and test it first. And then the second way is to build one page and refine your UI first. These 2 ways are really good ways of getting started building your app. So The first way here is to build your functionality and test it first. So that means we're going to build this report generating functionality. So we're going to give Lovable or Bolt a really clear prompt to say, build us an app that allows me to put in this information, sends it to OpenAI, and gives me this report back, and it shows it on a dashboard. And all we want to create are just the screens that are going to build that functionality. The second way here is to build one page and then refine your UI. And the reason that I like doing this, I usually do this second method more than I do the first method, because what I like to do is to get, maybe because I'm a designer and that's the way that I'm inclined, I think it's a really good way to get a really good looking app. If you want to design something that looks really, really good, is just to create one page from your flow here. So say like either the landing page or like a dashboard page or something, to create a dashboard page and then refine your UI, so that you're really, really happy with the user interface and the way it looks, the way it animates, all of the different styles. Because then generally, once you've got that first page done with all of your visual styles kind of designed, anything else that the AI creates, it's going to just follow that exact same style. And especially if you reference it as well in the AI tool that you're using. And so we're basically creating our first prompt to achieve those things. So create a first prompt to do that, and then put it in your AI tool. And that's what we're doing on day 9, is to create that first prompt and then put in that first prompt. We just spend the time creating a really, really good first prompt. And I've got a framework for creating those first prompts again in the community over at school.com/AI apps. If you do want to check it out, I do have another video here where I've also pulled together like an idea for a first prompt, but I have updated my process a little bit since then. Next, we want to, and I'm going to go over here for this one. Next, connect your database and authentication. This is super easy to do in a lot of these tools. So if you're using an all-in-one tool, you don't have to do it. If you're using something like Base44, if you're using something like Replit, these tools have authentication and database built in. That's great. Those tools, I would say, are best for internal facing applications. So if you're building something for your company or for your business or for a client's business, if you're working as an agency to kind of build AI apps, then those all-in-one tools are a really great place to start. And some of them have like the AI functionality built in as well. So you don't even have to connect your APIs a lot of the time. But if you're building in something like Lovable or Bolt, basically connect Supabase and set it up. So you've built your app here. What you've probably got is you've probably got one page with a nice UI, or you've got a few pages that do your functionality, basically, or that have like your functionality on it. And so what we want to do here in our tool is we want to say, create a login and sign up flow, connect to Supabase, and get Lovable or Bolt to basically create like all of your tables and database structure in Supabase, because that's what those tools can do. They connect really easily with Supabase and they just kind of like work together to create that stuff for you. And then use the chat here. One really key thing here, because this can be a bit technical, is to use the chat functionality to ask questions. So in both Bolt and Lovable, you have chat mode. In a lot of other tools, you have chat mode as well. If you're using Cursor, you can just directly chat with the agent. If you're using a browser like Dia or Perplexity Comet, you can actually chat with your Supabase database directly in a tab in your browser, which is super, super useful. I love doing that. I think it's a really, really good way to build database stuff without knowing exactly what you're doing, because I don't know what I'm doing half the time either. Then day 11 to 13, I've got here to test and iterate on your primary feature. Now, this is your main functionality that you've built, so get it working good. The aim is to get it working good to a point where you're happy with it. And the primary functionality is your one MVP feature that you're working on. Your one way of solving that problem that wants to be really, really strong. And then day 14 is to test and iterate secondary functionality. I should put there secondary features. And secondary features I would always consider as basically your secondary features are your user profile, login and sign up, your account management, your admin dashboard, all of those kind of processes behind the scenes that are pretty boring and aren't that fun to do. Those things are what you want to do on day 14, test and iterate your secondary features. Then day 15, improve the UI and design. So this is more important, like if you haven't done this already. If you didn't do that as your first prompt, you just want to like get happy with the UI. Keep prompting it to make visual changes, and also use screenshots for components. So take screenshots of components that you like on other websites, cards, buttons, that sort of thing. Put screenshots into ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT to describe the style of that component, and then use that style description to put back into your AI building tool. Day 16, because we're building a consumer-facing app here where we want to get customers and we want to get people paying for it, we want to integrate Polar for payments. And now people in the community ask me all the time, why Polar and why not Stripe? Well, Polar does two things really, really well. Polar is, number one, is a merchant of record, which means they do the tax for all of the different countries, which is amazing. And then number two, they are SaaS first. So basically they are a payment provider that is a merchant of record, so they collect all the tax, and they're also specifically for SaaS products and SaaS companies and for SaaS like software tools basically. So they're designed to work with apps, and what you want to do here is you just want to chat with Lovable or Bolt or whatever tool you chat to integrate this, and then test it. Because you might have a different way of doing the pricing based on the business model that we've defined up here. And all you want to do is just test that payment functionality. Once you've integrated it, this will need to hook up a little bit with Supabase as well, but it shouldn't be too difficult once you go through those steps. And I would also, like, if you're struggling at this point, just simplify your pricing model. Go for like one paid plan and one free plan. I see loads of people getting stuck at this point where they're trying to integrate pricing into their app, but they're thinking about, well, how do I do 4 different pricing plans? Well, really, when people are starting to use your app, it's not going to matter about having all of these different pricing options. You just really want to have one paid option, keep it pretty reasonable, and then have a free option in there as well, or a free trial. I think that's generally the way that I like to do things here. You might have a different idea which needs this complex pricing, but I think like keeping it as simple as possible to start off with is best. Day 17, let's security check our app. So what does that mean? Like, use the button for it, basically. In Lovable, they've recently added this feature, I think, and you can do it in base 44, where you just click security check and it will just go through your app and do a security check. If not, prompt it. So just ask, check for security issues, basically. So say like, check the entire code base for this app for security issues, find them and fix them, and then your app should go through that. You might need to do that a couple of times or identify specific issues. If you want to be really, really careful about this, just add on the end, like, don't change anything else. Don't change anything in the app, or don't change any functionality. And that's just a little hack there to, like, if you do want to get the AI app builder that you're working with, so just do something really, really specific. Just make sure you're adding that in at the end. And then day 18, we're doing final polish and tweaks. Let's go all the way around here. Actually, I'm not going to do one for this because final polish and tweaks really just means like get it so that you're happy with it. Get it to a point where you think, I would use that app. So let's actually make a note of that. Let's come over here and say what we're looking for is this. I would use this. Yes, I'm happy with it. I would use this product if I was the right customer. And then next we want to deploy our MVP, and I'm going to need a bit more space for deploying because deploying is an interesting one. So deploying your app, if you're building a consumer app, let's go all the way over here. So when you deploy your app, you're going to want to deploy your app to a subdomain. And what do I mean by subdomain? A subdomain is like basically app.website.com. So that's where your app lives. And you're going to deploy it. You can deploy that first. If you buy a subdomain through, like, tools to use here are basically Vercel or Netlify, and sync your code with GitHub. So we're going to want to sync our app code with GitHub. We're going to want to buy a domain on Netlify or Vercel. You're going to want to go into Netlify or Vercel. Once your code is stored in GitHub from your project in Lovable or Bolt or Base44 or any of these other tools that you're using, once your code is in GitHub, you can then publish it directly to your domain. But don't go straight to your main domain, go to a subdomain. So when you deploy it to your domain, you want to say that this is the domain that you want to deploy it to, and it should pretty much do the rest for you automatically. These platforms are generally pretty good with this. So you're deploying to app.website.com, and then your other block here, which is website.com, this is going to be your landing page, and this is what we're going to do next. So we want to separate these two things. We want to separate your app and your landing page onto the subdomain and your primary domain. So when you're building your MVP of your app, that's one thing to bear in mind, is that this landing page part, your website, is not included in the app. It's not included in the app, but people will land on the landing page first. This is done as a separate project, so I'll do like create as a separate project. So that's what we're going to get onto next. So we've got app.website.com and we've deployed our app to that. We've done that through GitHub and Vercel or Netlify. That means you've got your MVP as an app live on a domain, on the subdomain, sorry. Next, we want to, day 20, we're going to create our app landing page. So do this in a separate project. We're running out of space here. This should be in a separate project to your app. And this is important because you keep your marketing landing page and your app separate, so that if you want to make any changes to your landing page at any point, you're actually, because AI is building this, AI has a tendency to run off and do other changes. So for example, if I create a landing page, and on the landing page I say that I have this feature, AI sometimes might interpret that as like, oh, if you're saying that this feature should be on the landing page, then that means I also need to build it in the app. Where actually, we don't really want to touch the app. So we want to keep those two separate. And it might be that the way that you just want to change wording on your landing page, or you just want to do X, Y, Z. Also, a lot of these AI app builders have a problem with building an app that has a landing page first as well and is just deployed straight to a domain, because that's not the standard setup for an app. That's not how it would usually be built. If you look at code bases, basically any code base that AI has learned from, it's learned that apps exist on the subdomain and the website exists on the primary domain. And so when you build an app, a lot of the time in these AI app builders, it creates the login and the sign up page as your first page that you see, and you think, well, why is that my main page? Why is the login? And you might go around in circles to try and fix that. I know I have done that like a few times. And so create a separate project to your app and build, and this is like your marketing landing page, and this is the website people come to before they sign up. Great. So we've got our landing page and we've built it in a separate project, and you want to make sure, like, let's add another one here, like make sure the look and feel matches. Like if I come onto a website which looks different to the app that I'm going to use, it feels really, really weird. And then the next one here is just, let's do a little curvy arrow here. The next one here is to deploy your landing page. So we're going to deploy to your main domain. And then I'm going to do a big arrow over to this one as well, because that is the same. And so this is like the same as this. So we take our landing page project, we sync it to GitHub, we deploy it on website.com, And so we'll go this route instead. And so then at the end of this whole process from building, what we've got is we've got our MVP that works. We've got the functionality that works. We've got all of the secondary features that we need. We've got our database and our authentication hooked up. We've got our integration with Polar for payments, so we can accept payments through Polar on our app. We've security tested it, and we've deployed our app and our landing page to the app.website.com and then to website.com for the landing page. So everything is live and ready to go. Our MVP is ready to actually get real paying customers. So how do we actually launch? Well, as I said, launching is a long process. Launching is long. So we're not going to just launch on one day and like hope everything works out for the best and just pray that customers come in, because that's not going to work. What we need to do is we need to do active promotion and honest and authentic promotion of our app across multiple social media channels and multiple communities. And also we can look at things like outbound marketing and stuff as well. So this launch 10 days is really intended to help you get started with the primary ways of marketing apps in 2025. So number one, start building in public. So what is building in public? What is building public? Building in public is basically, let me do an arrow for this. What is building in public is basically share your journey, and it's primarily on X. And there are communities for this on X as well, so you can jump into those if that helps. Jump into those communities and just be genuine and honest and thoughtful and actually share your progress, and but use familiar like post frameworks that work on X. So what you can do here to help is like research build in public X posts that do well. You always want to like include a day or week to show progress. And because people love following along progress on these sorts of social platforms, and also demo things and show the bad as well as the good. So be like, you know what guys, today, and to be honest, you can actually start doing this build in public from the beginning of your build. So you could start, instead of starting on day 22, you could actually start this on day 6, which I would actually recommend, because this gives you more days of content to test. And so we want to show progress and we want to bring people along for the ride. We want to attract people who are not just building other apps, but people who are our target customer persona, to actually follow along the journey and start using the tool and start giving us feedback. And what you'll notice when you start doing these things, start sharing your journey and start doing other types of social content here, is that if you're building something that resonates, people will gravitate towards it. And if you build momentum, then people will follow that momentum as well, because you get a sense that something is happening, something is growing, somebody is doing something. And so day 22, we're going to start building in public, and we're going to keep doing that. Keep doing it daily, every day. Do at least one post a day on X that shares your progress and updates people on what you're doing. And that's it. You don't have to do anything more than that. Day 23, we want to find communities and join them. Why communities? And what do I mean by communities? Well, basically this is like places online that your customer is hanging out. So where could this be? This could be like Facebook groups, Reddit, subreddits, forums, is that still a thing? Other communities, you can look on like school and other community platforms for free groups. And it basically gives you a really good entry point. It's like an entry point to sharing your app with people. And basically we want to make sure we're doing a few things here. Be authentic. Don't be salesy. Just ask for feedback. And bring people along on your journey. So like you want to be like authentic and genuine, engage with these communities, be interested and wants to help people, Your goal here is to help people to solve a problem. And so you're going to engage with communities and actually try and help them solve that problem. Remember, we're not trying to get 1 million customers here. we're trying to get one customer. This is the goal for launch. Get one paying customer. That's the start. That's the start of everything. And so we just want to do everything manually, engage with people, speak to people. If that's my biggest lesson out of all of this, is just speak to people as much as possible, because that's really important to actually bring people, to actually start building something that gives people value and solves their problem. The next step here is like the go-to way that a lot of people are like marketing these big kind of apps that are making a lot of money at the moment, is short form video content. And the reason for short form video content being such a focus is because short form video content can get a really, really great reach, even on a new account, just because of the algorithm. It's about discovery and it's about attention, and whatever works, the algorithm is going to push. And so what we want to do here is we want to look on short form video specific platforms, i.e. TikTok and Instagram. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a few things. We're going to create a new account for our app. We're going to search for relevant terms for our app, and then we're going to filter those short form videos by likes or by views. And what we're trying to do here is we're trying to maximize attention. Basically, that's the goal. We want to maximize the amount of attention that we're getting to our app. And once we've filtered the videos by views or by likes, we then want to save formats that are easy to recreate, that you could feasibly recreate yourself, like very easily, or with AI if you wanted to. And there are some tools out there that do this, and there are some tools to help with this. So like some that I know are Arcads, Blueprint, and there are some others out there as well that do like AI generated video that can work quite well. So now we're basically researching, find the best formats. That's our goal here. We want to find the best social media. We want to find the best short form video formats that is going to get the most attention to our app. And we've got a new account, and we want to put a CTA in our videos and put a CTA on our profile to go and download the app or to go and try the app. We want to make sure we're always directing people to our app from any of these accounts. So then we're going to create short form content, and that's just basically going to be like the same thing. So we're going to create videos that we've saved in this format, and we want to do this as often as possible. Creating short form content is like something that not a lot of people, sometimes people don't get on with. I don't get on with short form content particularly well. I find it quite difficult to create. And so that's where I think like going into your niche, going into your specific area that your app is, the specific area that your app is targeting, and finding really easy to replicate formats that do really well can give you a little bit of motivation to actually kind of try and start creating them. The next part here for the next 3 days are about, in the launch section, is about long form content. And so this is for a more specific type of app, and maybe not necessarily for like everybody here. If you don't want to do long form content, you can kind of spend the 3 days doing the content, doing building in public and doing short form video content, and just focusing on those two if you want to. But for long form content, if this is something that's going to work for you, basically we want to so say for example, you have got an app which is going to provide value to a certain group of people, a certain niche, and that niche is something that you can search for on YouTube. So basically search like in the niche your app serves, and then again like save formats. But you want to save like titles and thumbnails that do well on YouTube. And then you want to find formats that are easy to recreate. So for example, for me, I'm good at doing this kind of screen share. Hopefully you think the same thing. I'm good at doing this kind of screen share, like go through a subject in a lot of detail kind of video. And that's really easy for me to create because I can kind of just film this in one go and then edit it very quickly and it's done. And so what we want to do is to do these 3 things. So search in your niche, save titles and thumbnails that do well, and find formats that are easy to recreate. And then once you've done that, you want to create that long form content. So maybe try recording like 1 or 2 videos. And I've got here like 2 steps: create long form content and edit and publish your long form content. So that one connects in there as well. So basically, like from that, like create a list or use AI to create a list of title ideas that would work well to demo your app or that uses your app. So in this sense, like I can tell you exactly here like why I'm going through this 30-day framework. Like hopefully it's helpful for you, but also this 30-day framework is something that I've built for my community specifically to help them create apps from scratch and then go and get their first customers. And so I'm using this as a tool directly to demo the community content, basically, because this is the sort of thing that we talk about, and this is the sort of thing that I help people with, and this is the sort of thing that other people in the community are helping people with as well. So you can see, like, do content around the thing that you're building. So if you're building an app that's going to help like people write a novel, then a good YouTube video idea might be something like how to write your first chapter of your novel using AI in 30 minutes. That would be something that loads of people click on and would actually be able to demo the app that you're building, which is helping people write novels using AI. So that is an idea that you can do there for long form. And then day 29, we're nearly at the end here. So day 29, we'll do a little wiggly one over here. Day 29, we're going to do our first outbound marketing. Outbound marketing is scary. A lot of people will tell you to do outbound marketing as your first port of call for selling a product or selling an app or trying to get customers. The thing with outbound marketing is it's super cold, and if you don't know what works or what type of person to talk to, you're not going to know what type of outbound marketing to do. And so hopefully, the reason I've put this at the end is because hopefully through all of the previous days, in going into communities, building in public, speaking to real people, remember to speak to people, you're going to figure out like exactly who your customer profile is. You might, and it might not be the same as what we defined back up here in the validate step. So that is going to give you a really good idea of who to target. Basically, use info from your previous content or community or speaking to people. Basically, that's going to inform who you need to target for this app. And where do you start? Where do you start with outbound? Well, I would advocate not automating to start off with. And everyone's like creating these automated workflows for like outbound marketing, like sending 1 million emails to people or 1 million LinkedIn messages. And the trouble with that is that if it doesn't work, you're just like spamming people. And if it does work, you're suddenly going to get like hundreds and hundreds of people emailing you and messaging you back, and you're not in a place to be able to handle that. And I know because that's happened to me before when I've tried like doing outbound for certain things, and it's just like it did so well that it went a bit wrong, basically. So where to start? We don't want to automate. What we want to do is we want to do this manually. And what do I mean by this is like create your first message or email. And you can use AI to do this to help you. And then you want to find leads, use something like Apollo or LinkedIn Sales Navigator. And then you want to message manually. You want to actually like connect with these people on LinkedIn, and you want to message them manually. You want to send a message, you want to heavily personalize it as well. So it needs to be really, really personal to that individual. And obviously you can do this with AI to kind of like automate and personalize all this stuff using AI and all these complicated ways of doing outbound marketing. But I really think the best thing to do first is to do this manually, and just remember that you're trying to get your 1 or 2 paying customers from this. You're not trying to get hundreds and hundreds, and you're just trying to learn what works. And from doing this manually, you'll figure out the right types of messages that are resonating with people, the right types of messages that are getting people to reply to you and getting some interest around that app that you've built. And so really just focus on doing this manually to start off with. So that's how you do your first outbound marketing. And then we're at day 30. This is the end of the full process. Basically review what you've learned and keep going. But I do want to say congrats for going through the whole process. If you are just following along with this, to be honest, or you're just even going through all of this is so much stuff, and it's so much more than just typing a prompt into Lovable and getting an app back, which is really why I want to help people to be able to do this better and to actually start getting customers for their app. We've gone through so much here. I would say the last thing that I would do here on day 30 at the end of this process, do a big straight arrow down, is we want to review, we want to think about what worked and what didn't work. Are we happy with what we've built, our app, and then what can we do next, and how can we double down on what's working. So this kind of growth flywheel that happens after you've actually built an app, launched it, got your first customer, your first few customers, your first 10 customers, is you want to always be looking for signals. We want to always be constantly reviewing what we've done, what worked, what didn't work, what we liked, what we didn't like, and thinking about how can we double down on what's working. Because a lot of the time, the way that success is found through building apps or anything that you're trying to build in business is by figuring out what works and then just doing more of the thing that works. So if something has worked for you throughout this whole process, maybe it's short form video, maybe it's building in public, maybe it's posting to a community, cut out the stuff that isn't working or do it differently, and then do more of the things that are working. And that's going to be the thing that's going to take your app, that's going to basically take your app and help it scale. And that's the full process. And so now we've gone through the whole process, I'm just going to go through some final thoughts. Hopefully this has helped and give you an idea of what you can maybe do next after going through this full video. So there you go. That was my full 30-day framework for coming up with an idea for an app, building it, launching it, and getting your first paying customer. Hopefully you can go through that process and follow along, or if you're already building something, you can figure out what you need to do next in order to get you to a point where you can launch your app and start getting actual customers. Now, a lot of the success of this framework actually comes down to how you start finding those customers after you've actually built something, but a lot of people get stuck. And you can get stuck at any point of this really, and it's actually, and what none of the AI tools tell you, because they all promise that you can build apps in minutes, but the reality is that it still takes a lot of hard work, and there are still a lot of steps to go through to actually build something that is going to solve people's problems and even get people who are willing to pay for that. And so that's why I wanted to take you through the full process of actually building something that's valuable to get paying customers. And as I mentioned before, this is the same 30-day framework that I have a course for in my community over at school.com/AI apps. So if you're interested in learning more and you want to follow along with the course and go a bit more into detail into each of these days in the 30-day plan, then you can sign up to the community over at school.com/AI apps. And as usual, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Build great products. Build great products.